Assuming okay, we are now live on YouTube. Okay, we got it. All right, welcome everybody to our September meeting. Welcome back from your summer vacations. And even though we have our weekly Zooms, it's always nice to see people we haven't seen in a while. So new members, returning members, those joining us from other centers and on our Zoom channel and the YouTube channel, welcome. Just a few little things to note. RASC-Kingston Center is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. And a reminder that Fallen Stars is this weekend in South Bay in Prince Edward County on September 10th to the 12th. We're looking forward to that. And it's going to be clear out on Friday and Saturday night. So, and there may even be an aurora on Friday night. So you never know. So for our introduction by poetry, we are going to have David Levy start us off. David?
Well, thank you very, very much, Kim. And it's really good to see all of you. I hope that your summer was good. Ours was a little less than great. Of course, the worst part of it was losing Carolyn Shoemaker. But we had a lot of rain this summer, and almost a record summer for rain, which we really, really need. So we're really very happy about that. But it's kind of drying out again, and so hopefully I'll be able to do observing tonight. And the sun is just roaring with activity right now. There were 56 sunspots today over 5 groups. So if you're at Fallen Stars, look for the Northern Lights. Anyway, my poetic introduction will be in honor of our granddaughter, Summer. And in order to do that, just because I feel like it, I'm going to quote William Morris's poem, Summer Dawn. Pray but from one prayer for me twixt thy closed lips. Think but one thought of me up in the stars. The summer night wanes, the morning light slips. Faint and gray twixt the leaves of the aspen, betwixt the cloud bars that are patiently waiting there for the dawn, patient and colorless through heaven's gate, waits to float through them along with the sun. Far out in the meadows above the young corn, the heavy elms wait. Not in the desert they don't, but the heavy elms wait, and restless and cold the uneasy wind rises. The roses are dim. Through the long twilight they pray for the dawn, round the low house in the midst of the corn. Speak but one word to me over the corn, over the tender bowed locks of the corn. Welcome again, and let's have a good meeting. And I wish you all, especially for all of our Jewish members and friends tonight, I wish you a very peaceful Rosh Hashanah, and may all of you be inscribed in the book of life for many, many years of health, happiness, peace of mind, prosperity, and everything that you wish for. Now back to you, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was wonderful. Okay, so we are now going to turn to our guest speaker, Murray Paulsen. Murray's starry sky calling was when he was 9 years old, and many years later, he still finds that it fascinates him. Viewing the planets, a distant nebula, or a colorful double, the sky brings him home. In the 90s, he discovered meteorites and eclipses, both of which he fell in love with. Neither of these activities is helping his RRSPs along, but he didn't want to retire anyway. And in 2008, the Buzzard Coulee meteorite changed everything, and he became a meteorite hunter and a meteorite finder. Many chases and hunts later, it still excites him to find the next meteorite. Murray also writes the planet section of the RASC Observer's Handbook and the occasional article on observing Mars. It is my great pleasure to introduce and to have Murray Paulsen give us a talk tonight at the Kingston Center meeting. Murray?
It's nice to join you people. And to David Levy in the background, it's great to hear you again after all these years. It's been such a long time. My wife has been more lucky than myself in running into you over the last while. Great to see you again, sir. Anyway, I will start without further ado and see if I can get things to start in their usual way. Okay, can everybody see my my screen?
You betcha.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Once upon a time, there was a bright fireball in the Saskatchewan skies, and that changed everything in my life. It chose the picture setting of Buzzard Coulee for a place to land, and a more beautiful place I don't think I've spent time at. This is just gorgeous. This is looking to the southwest across the valley, and literally thousands of meteorites fell in this location. Well, until the fall of 2008, the only way I'd found meteorites was with this special tool. Many of you will be familiar with it. And but after the 20th of November, that all changed. Alan Hildebrand announced the find of the first specimen on November 27th. And I believe that was a Thursday. And by Friday, everybody was revved up and ready to get out. And his grad student, the eagle-eyed Ellen Milley, had found stone number 1 sitting out on a pond. They were driving around looking at the ponds, icy ponds in the countryside around this area, and they must have driven all day, all week, and then all of a sudden spotted a stone. And that was meteorite number 1. I've actually seen that stone. It's pretty cool. And the main landowners in this adventure were Justin Lamb, Ian Mitchell, and Alex Mitchell, and that is Ian Mitchell. It's pictured in this photo. And this is ground zero. If you take the Google Earth and look up Buzzard Coulee, you'll find this stuff. And there's my little arrow to Discovery Pond. This is the land that was owned by Justin Lamb. And then it shows you Ian Mitchell and Alex Mitchell's, the brothers' different plots of land. Many meteorites were found on all of these places, and it was pretty cool. I've been studying meteorites for a long time. I've actually, since the General Assembly in Edmonton in 1996, where I'd canvassed a whole bunch of suppliers to send me things. And I got a few meteorites from one of the companies down in the US. And I realized that I wanted that meteorite. Unfortunately, I didn't win it at the General Assembly, but I shortly afterwards talked to that meteorite dealer and ended up exchanging credit card information for many rocks, and it's happened many times in between. Well, Buzzard Coulee was really cool. It was close by. There were lots of stones, and as of November 20th, it had not snowed. It was a really dry year. It was just incredible. So I gathered a bunch of friends and we jumped in my van, drove out to the area. We didn't at this point know exactly where the area was. We didn't have a clue, and Alan Hildebrand wasn't really forthcoming in that information. But I figured if they could find meteorites on ponds, I could go to the Battle River, and it's a great big long snake that goes through that area. And so just maybe I would find meteorites on that river. And so that's what we did. We went out on the river, and this shows 2 of my friends, Brian Moore and Sharon Tansey. They've got a stick, and at the end of that stick is a magnet. We took the high energy magnets, and there's some of them that you can buy that have a hole in them. You can actually screw them to the end of a stick. I call this a meteorite stick, and I've made many of them, and I've only got half of them back that I lent out to friends that were accompanying me on meteorite hunts. Anyway, we wandered down the river, and I think about an hour in, my friend Brian Moore found his first stone. It weighed ½ a gram, and it was just sitting on the ice. And about 4 hours later, I was getting depressed. I was thinking, there's nothing out here. All of a sudden, I saw something sinking in the ice, and it was a little 3.6 gram stone. I used my ice axe there, you can see with the claw hammers on it, to dig the meteorite out. And I was all of a sudden, a meteorite finder. It was the very first. Our next trip was on December 2nd. The last trip was actually the 29th of December. This is 3 days, 4 days later. 3 days later, on December 2nd, we took the day off work. We phoned in sick and drove out to Buzzard Coulee. And there's a road that runs up and down the hill towards Discovery Pond. So we dutifully searched it, and I found 2 pieces on the road, and they looked suspiciously like somebody had run over it and broke it in half, but they were 20 meters apart. And my friend Brian Moore, who was with me, he found a 36-gram buzzard and a 123-gram monster, big block of a meteorite. It was quite beautiful. I was jealous. And also when we were out there, we met some of the friends of you guys down in Western Ontario. There were Wayne Edwards and Phil McCausland from Western Ontario, and we actually met Ellen Milley, who had found that very first meteorite. So it was really cool. We also met a dude by the name of Warren Wiley on the road just north of the river. He had found an 8-kilogram stone, and we were coming up that road. We thought about, since we looked up and down this one road, that maybe we'd go down to the road by the river and walk up and down it. And if we'd started out an hour earlier, it would be me in this picture instead of Warren. So, damn. But beautiful stone, big stone. And you can see the dirt on it from the impact where it ended up embedded in the ground. This one was actually half embedded in the ground. The ground was frozen, but this thing managed to punch itself into the soil. Really cool. And then the next trip was on December 5th. And unfortunately, as we were driving out to Lloydminster from Edmonton, it started snowing. And by the time we got out to where the fields were, you couldn't see the ground anymore. And we knew that the hunt was over for the year. We met Ellen Hildebrand's crew out looking around on Justin Lamb's land. And I don't think they'd found anything either. And we also met guys that were working on the oil field. This was a gas field, and there were all kinds of guys out there going up and down, checking the equipment, making sure the tanks were full, et cetera, et cetera. And they were also picking up meteorites. And this guy handed me a 400-gram stone. He said, $4,000 would take it. And I smiled at him and I said, thank you very much, and walked away. It was a beautiful stone though. My found specimens for 2008 were the broken stone and a couple smaller individuals, plus the 3.6 gram I found on the ice. Well, over the winter, I had all kinds of friends in the RASC in Edmonton and Calgary who were contacting me and saying, do you have any that you could sell? Because people wanted, we don't know how many of these things actually made it to the ground. And so people wanted one before they disappeared. So I'd run into a whole bunch of these people out in the oil field, and most of them had given me their phone number. So I phoned them, and I'd met them up, and I'd meet them at a Pizza Hut, and I'd have $1,000 or $10,000 in my pocket, and I'd buy meteorites from these guys, and then come back and sell them to my friends in town. And it was getting kind of stiff. They really wanted $35 a gram for these things, and I really didn't want to pay that much. But a really neat thing happened is I got in contact with a man who owned the land that these guys were on. And I phoned him up, talked to him, and we struck a deal. He said, you can go out, you can hunt all you want. I want 50% of whatever you find. That's the charge. And I said, that's great, I'll take it. And that's what we ended up doing. Spring came along, and every weekend from April 1st to May 30th, I would phone up my friends and say, you want to go meteorite hunting? And I said, if you do, I'll send you a map, and this is where you'll find me. And we'll start off at 9 o'clock on Saturday mornings. And then we systematically searched Justin Lamb's land. We spent 2 months, and it was an Easter egg hunt. It was just fabulous. You're walking along, and you've been walking for a couple hours, and all of a sudden you see a black stone, and you go, oh, and what a blast. It was just awesome. And so here's our police style line. and we would be just far enough apart so we could whack each other with the stick that we were holding, and then we'd just walk across the fields. My friend Brad Newman, who is on the right there, had a GPS in his hand, and he tried to use that to stabilize us and keep us going in a straight line. And when somebody found something, we'd actually mark and create a waypoint for every stone. And then we had everybody, we told, you have to have baggies with you. We'd take it, write down the waypoint number from the GPS on their baggie. And then at the end of the day, we'd weigh the meteorites to find out how much every stone weighed. And then because of the benevolence of my host, Justin Lamb, I said, okay, we don't have to have these back until June. So you've got until June to decide which half of your stones that you want to keep, because I let everybody keep their stones. And my many friends joined me, and this is a typical scene as we're walking along. People would look at stuff, they'd see a black rock on the ground, you'd poke it once and it wouldn't come up, and you go, well, maybe. You poke it again, maybe a couple more times, maybe it'll change its mind. Sometimes it did, it was stuck on the ground. Sometimes it was just a black rock. And but they were really easy to tell. Once you got them in your hand, you knew it was a meteorite right away. It was just absolutely great. The woman in the gray coat on the right is my wife, and standing behind her is Rick Huziak from Saskatoon Center. My son found 35 stones in all. We figured it was because he was so close to the ground. He was just awesome. And my wife, her first stone that she found, she's holding it in her hand there in the left-hand photograph. She shrieked and hollered. She was having so much fun. And you can tell in her face how much fun she was having. She was just exhilarated. She has told me many times, this was the best time of her life. Out there hunting for those meteorites and actually finding them. It was superb. A little later on, she found this nice 90-gram potato on the ground. It was just beautiful, lovely specimen. She still has it to this day. She found 37 stones. And here are my two sons, Sean and Daniel, and they found about 8 or 10 each. They were only out for one weekend. It was boring. They couldn't play their video games, so they only gave me one weekend. But they all have their specimens, and they've kept half of them to this date, so that's kind of cool. The other neat thing out there in the field is you'd run into all kinds of crazy people. And the man on the far left is Don Hercott. He's a meteorite collector par excellence. And the other people here, you probably know some of them. They've remained in touch with us, and we're all good friends. And the meteorite hunt, it made a lot of people happy. There were so many people that I managed to get out there. It was 10 every day, but it wasn't the same 10. And by the time the session ended at the end of May, I probably had brought 70 different people out to this place to find a stone. If you're in Ellen Hildebrand's group, you could find stones all right, but you couldn't keep any of them. My deal was you could keep half of them, and that was a blast. The landowner was pretty happy too. He knew that he was going to end up with something in the order of about $20,000 to $50,000 worth of meteorites. And we, at the end of this event, we gave him 9 kilograms of stones. At $20 a gram, you can figure out what they were worth. And another man that was really happy with what I had, I gave him all my data. And this is probably, about the end of April. He came across the field to talk to me and asked me how many we'd found. And I told him that we'd found 400 stones. And he immediately, the next day, announced in some publication that Buzzard Cooley had surpassed the recovery effort at Bruderheim, because they'd found, I think, 300 or 400 stones. And all of a sudden, whatever he'd found, I think he'd found 200 by this point. His 200, my 400, easily exceeded Buzzard or Bruderheim. And so the Bruderheim fall now became historical, and the Buzzard Coulee became the greatest fall in Canada. But there was no mention of my name in this publication that he made. He was not terribly generous. The first pair of meteorites I found 20 meters apart on the gravel road, I ended up realizing they were puzzle piece meteorites. They fit together perfectly. And so I all of a sudden realized that there were other ones. And strangely enough, my son had found a stone, which he's pictured holding here. And I found it, this is his find on the ground. And about 2 weeks later, when I was up in the opposite end of the territory, I found the other half of it, but I didn't know it at the time. But I'd seen this stone, and it bothered me all day long. There was something about it that bugged me. And when I got home on the Sunday night, I took a look and found this in my collection of stones that I'd been finding, and I had the other half of this stone. And what's really cool, this tells you that the hydrodynamic forces on these meteorites as they're coming in at supersonic speeds was so great, it was able to rip stones apart on their travel down to the ground. This particular one separated by 1.4 kilometers apart at the end of its travel. And one thing that's kind of neat about it, it shows the direction of travel of the original meteorite, because this is the velocity that it was, velocity vector with which it was transiting our atmosphere. So this is really, really cool. I decided this was cool enough that we had a pairs party at my house. And so everybody brought their meteorites over, and everybody checked their stones against everybody else's stones. And we came up with a couple extra pairs, and this is one that my wife and my son Sean shared, and you can see it fit perfectly together. There's a third piece of it that's out there somewhere, but we did not have it. Then at the end of May, spring planting put an end to the hunt. And I didn't know you could get addicted to meteorite hunting, but I sure as hell was. And so this is the summary of the end of May 2009. This is Lamb's land. This is 576 acres. And this is the 745 stones that we found, all laid out as they were found on that land. And this was incredible. So you may ask, how many stones did I find? Well, I found, I believe, 145 of these stones. And that was 3.1 kilograms of Buzzard Coulee meteorites. It was just a blast. These are some of my stones. From left or right to left, at the lower left is, or lower right, I'm dyslexic, sorry. The lower right meteorite is about 190 grams. And as we go clockwise around, the next one is 139 grams, 110 grams. And the one at the back with the open face is 60 grams. That was actually found by my son, Daniel. And it was one of the ones that he gave back to Justin Lamb. But I bought that back because I thought that one was a really interesting stone, a nice open face like that. And these are some of the stones found by Ellen Hildebrandt's crew. This is a 3.6 kilo, a 3 kilo, another 2.5 kilo. And this is the strewn field as plotted out by Alan Hildebrandt. And I've zoomed in at the bottom end of it, and you can see where Justin Lamb's land is. What happened is the meteorite actually disrupted probably about 30 kilometers off the ground, broke up into fragments, and then these continued their travel down to the ground. But there was an eastbound wind, and that wind winnowed the lighter material to the east. And so that brought some of the material over to the Lamb's land. But interestingly enough, I don't know if you can see my pointer, there you can see Warren Wiley's stone was a long ways away from where the big three were found. But another one was found over where my arrow is. And I think that was the 2.5 kilo stone. So that was pretty cool. And people who like statistics, well, I'm an engineer and a physicist. And so if I can put it on a graph, I'll do it. This was using a frequency distribution function in Excel, and I adjusted the bin increments just to try to see what the distribution of stones was like. And you can see that there are very few large stones. And I think the largest we found was 245 grams. And then there's very few stones until you get down below 100. And then all of a sudden it climbs up asymptotically, going towards infinity as you go to the zero. And what's happening, the failure down at zero, is that the stones become so small they're hard to find and or hard to see. So you miss those ones. And possibly if we dragged a magnetic rake on the ground, we might have actually discovered more of those ones. So our statistics, we walk 22 to 25 kilometers every day, average of 7 meteorites per person per day, average of 1 meteorite, whoops, wrong way, average of 1 meteorite per 3 kilometers walked. Average weight of a meteorite was 24 grams. I want you to remember that number. It'll become important later on. The largest meteor was 215 grams, smallest 0.4 of a gram. So those are the statistics. Well, in the spring of 2010, my wife, my son, and I thought, we've got to go back to, just a year later, we've got to go back and see if we can find anything. And so we went back to this spot, and there was a place on the land that the landowner had let us camp when we were hunting in the previous year. And I used to park here every time, and we'd sit around and have supper in the trailer at the end of the day. Anyway, we decided we'd go out and we'd hunt around, and we invited some friends from Saskatoon. This is Daryl Chatfield and his son Colin, and that's my wife Joanne and my son Connor in the back. And we went out, and just after 2 hours, lucky Daryl, he found a 25-gram specimen in the woods just up above where our trailer was. And the key was you had to use a metal detector. There's no way on earth you could see these things. They were gone. And then luck eluded us all Saturday long. We hunted for the rest of Saturday and hunted for most of Sunday. And late Sunday afternoon, bang go, there it was. 20 hours of searching later, I found a 49-gram stone. And so that was just great fun, but a lot of work. And but it was nice to be out at Buzzard Coulee again. As I said, beautiful place. Well, in between those two trips in the summer of 2009, I got a call from Dr. Chris Hurd at the University of Alberta Geology Department. And he asked me, would I like to explore the White Quartz strewn field? This is an iron meteorite. And it was because of the reputation of me going out and logging all these stones and having all of this data carefully managed. And he was really interested in having me go do it. And so you bet, I was really excited. And I got my old friends that had accompanied me, Brad Newman and his daughter, Jen Newman, came out with me. And we went out and we did a lot of hunting. A little history about the White Quartz iron meteorite. 3 years beforehand, a fellow by the name of Rod Stevens brought a bowl-shaped depression in the White Quartz wilderness to the attention of his brother James, who was a geologist. He thought it was kind of funny out there. It was unusual. He'd never seen anything like it before. And his brother James went out with him, and he realized it was probably a meteor crater. They went into town, bought a metal detector at Canadian Tire, ran back, and they found pieces of iron around the crater. And they talked to the University of Alberta, and the university sort of went, yeah, sure. And so they boxed up their specimens, sent them to the university, and the very next day, the University of Alberta was out there looking at the stuff because, yes, these most definitely were meteorites. And so they set up a public awareness campaign and asked people to go out and find meteorite specimens, but nobody was giving them any data back. So he was kind of loose to figure out how to get the data. And so that's why he contacted me. There's a shot of Rod Stevens. Unfortunately, his brother passed away in 2008, but great man. I've run into him many times out in the field. Here's a slice from an individual, and you can see that it's an iron octahedrite. It's got the Woodstadt Manton pattern in it. Beautiful meteorite. And most of what's out there, though, is shrapnel. This thing hit, and hit the ground at incredible speed and shattered into a gazillion pieces. And it excavated this crater. The specimens are buried in 5 to 25 centimeters worth of soil. And this is sort of the humus sort of accumulates from the trees and stuff, deadfall, and over 1,000 years, you get 5 to 25 centimeters worth of new soil accumulating on the ground from all of the humus from all of those years. As I stated at the bottom here, a few individuals have been found, but the masses of the individuals were actually, that's a misprint, it's 50 grams to 31 kilograms. And so this is what the system looked like when we got there, the first time out on it. And you'll notice the red hatched section, that's the protected area. But you can see there are not that many meteorites in it that have been documented in this diagram. Well, the protected site, they went out to historical resources and said, we want to protect this crater so it doesn't get robbed. And so they managed to get a 200 by 200 meter area around it. And they stated that there would be fines if you were caught taking out of it. And unfortunately, there's nobody there to protect the site. And so people go and rob specimens out of it all the time. So it's unfortunate, but it's the problem of having an unprotected gold mine. It will get taken advantage of. Well, let's compare Meteor Crater and White Core Crater. I don't know if any of you people have seen Meteor Crater. Comment at the end of this, but it's grand. It's 1,186 meters across, or if you're more into feet, 3,890 feet, almost 4,000 feet across. It's just under a mile, and it's 570 feet deep. And this thing was 50 meters in diameter, and they compute that it was probably weighed about 500 million metric tons, traveling at 13 kilometers per second. And it was just like a hydrogen bomb. It just created this incredible crater. And what happened is it mostly just evaporated. It because of the frictional forces of it stopping on the ground, and all that kinetic energy just became megatons of bombs. It just blew out this incredible amount of material. Well, I scaled the little crater of the White Core to the same size or same metric as this map, and it's only 37 meters in diameter and 6 meters deep. The object that made it was about 1 meter in diameter and weighed 5 to 10 tons. It was traveling at about 10 kilometers per second. So, and it, just like Meteor Crater, Arizona, it did not evaporate, but it shattered like glass. And that when it shattered, it rebounded. It did a compression rebound off the hard surfaces and came back up through the ground and ripped all this material out. It must have sounded like a bomb going off. White Core Crater, it's a great place. I've spent many days there. I think the last count was 80 days. It's been so much fun out there hunting. And one of the things I did get to do, which was kind of fun, is I participated in an episode of the Meteorite Men. I actually was the steering member of the committee. They had sent a letter asking us if there was any good place to go in Alberta to go hunting for meteorites. And I didn't want them going where we were, because we were at Mayerthorpe. I wanted them going somewhere else. And then I got this bright idea. We could save the protected area. We could go in and just take as much material out of it as possible to prevent thieves from going in and stealing that material. So there, on the far left is Jeffrey Notkin. Jen Newman is right beside him. And I just forgot the other, Steve Arnold, and then I'm on the far right. So yeah, it was great fun. Well, then a number of years later, I got some interest from Winnipeg, and I'd given a talk down there in 2016 on meteorites. And so they phoned me up one day and said, we'd like to go out and do a hunt at the crater. That would be a lot of fun. And I said, yes, it is a lot of fun. You should get out here before everything's gone. And so four members came from Winnipeg, and then Huziak from Saskatoon came out with a friend. And then the guy on the far left, Brian Moore, he owns the quad. He gives transportation. So it was great fun. We all went out to the crater, and Brian provided some transport. He could only take one person at a time. So the rest of us marched in on the road, and one person had a bad leg, so they got the luck of the draw. When you get to the crater, though, there's sort of a marshalling point when you come in, and you have to jump off your quad and you walk across a stream bed and then up a hill, and you see this incredible crater. And that I'm standing on the rim looking down at this gentleman at the bottom of the crater. That's Ralph from Winnipeg. And you can see the rim of the crater up near the top of the photograph. It's quite extraordinary. And you can see somebody gingerly climbing down the hillside. It's so steep that if it's wet and slippery, it's a bobsled run. It's crazy. Well, and if you go out there, you have to get your picture taken on the rim. So there's Jay Anderson on the far left there, and among other people, his wife kneeling in the middle, and Stan Runge on the far right. And then there's the old quick old cell phone selfie. It's good fun. And then when you get out hunting on site, well, everything's buried in the ground. So if you don't have a metal detector, you're not going to find anything unless you dig an awful lot of soil and filter it out. So everybody had a metal detector. I have personally owned 3 of them. So I lent 2 of my detectors out to these people, and a couple of them had brought detectors with them. In the end, I think just about everybody found a meteorite. So everybody was really happy, and they had a good time out there. I think we spent 2 days at it, and my friend Stan Runge, he's holding up. He had a geologist's hammer with magnets taped to it, and you use the magnets to fish out the iron meteorites in the dirt pile that you've just dug out of the ground. And so he's got a meteorite or 2 on his hammer there, displaying them. It's kind of fun. So this map is from about 2012, and this is the extent of the material that we'd found in the meteorite field. And this is between me and 2 other people. And this is about 2,500 data points, and it amounts for approximately 120 kilograms of iron meteorites. And the purple things on it, though, those are meteorites that they're not only ones we found, they're things that Rod Stevens found. And there's Rod Stevens in the lower left, upper left, and then there's one near the upper mid section. It says RS3 on it. So these meteorites, those 3 together weigh about 60 kilos. So he'd found a lot of really great stuff, and but I still outnumber everybody else for the number of individuals I've found. I found 4 or 5 individuals. So here are some of my specimens that I found. A lot of stuff, if you're really careful hunting, you'll find stuff in the 2 to 2/10 of a gram range. And this is 16 grams of meteorites here in this photo. This is a 45-gram piece of shrapnel. What's really cool about this one is up at the top center, it's sharp enough to cut your finger. It has got sharp points on it, and it's amazing. And you think about this thing was buried in the ground for 1,000 years. It is still sharp. It is not sharp because it's rusted away. It is sharp because it was that way when it came and landed on the ground. And it's really neat to think that Mother Nature invented stainless steel long before we did. That's just superb. And thinking about this stuff as you're wandering around in the woods, picking these things up, you think, that's probably why people did the alchemy, to try to figure out what the hell made meteorites so impervious to rusting compared to the steel that they made themselves. And that must have spawned some of the metallurgy that has changed the way our world is. There's a 120-gram shrapnel piece and a 900-gram shrapnel. These are all my stones, and one of my individuals. And this just little wee 176-gram individual, beautiful little stone. And it was just so cool finding these things. Well, back to the statistics again. You can tell I'm an engineer. You can swing a metal detector and dig about 70 holes in a day before your arm falls off. The metal detector just kills you. You're swinging this thing all day long, and 8 hours of swinging it, your arm's falling off. The specimens are from 2 inches to 16 inches down, or 5 centimeters to 40 centimeters. The team total over the years, and this is up to 2020, we've found 4,000 stones now, and it's now slightly over 120 kilograms, probably closer to 140. The average weight of a meteorite is still 26 grams. Remember I told you to remember that from Buzzard Coulee? I don't know, it's curious coincidence. The largest shrapnel was about 1360 grams. The smallest was 1/10 of a gram. And the largest individual, and I've got a misprint here, it should be 31 kilograms. It's now the largest individual. I've updated this, but I forgot to update that particular line in my presentation. So statistics again, once again, you can see that if you go from the mass of meteorites, it comes up at a particular slope and then it declines. And once again, once you get down below a gram, they're really hard to find because they're underneath 2 to 10 inches of soil, and they're so far down that you can't see them. It's really hard with a metal detector. You have to be really patient. You have to scrub that metal detector right on the ground now to be able to spot these small stones like the ones that I showed you in the first of the specimens photograph. So I'm going to step away from Whitecourt now. Deciding that we'd been successful and hiding from what we were doing from the meteorite men, we were actually out at Mayerthorpe hunting for meteorites there. And so the Mayerthorpe meteorite was, the first specimens were found in 46, and second specimen found by Democra's son in 64. In total, 4 specimens were found, but 1 was lost. And we talked to the owners of the land out there and got permission from them to hunt on their land. And that was me and Brad Newman. And this was in June of 2011, and we were ready to go for it. So here's the layout, and I'm including our final find, which is in the middle of it. It's 2011 fall. And but there was a 4 kilogram, a 10 kilogram one, a 3.8 kilogram, and about a 200 gram one that was down at the far end of the distribution ellipse. When we were hosted at one of the farms out there, they let me park my trailer, and Brad Newman parked his trailer, which he kept the quads in. And then we used a pulse inductive detector to survey the fields, and we made our own home-built coil. It was I think it was 4 by 8 feet, and then we just towed it around the field. And whenever Brad would hear a blip on it, he would stop, throw a flag out on the ground, and I would drive along in another vehicle behind him. And when I got to the flag, I would dig up whatever he'd heard, and we continue on. And we did this for 5 days, dawn to dusk. And on noon on the 5th day, we were getting really depressed. And at 2 o'clock, bingo, there it was. I had just dug out the 5th Mayerthorpe iron meteorite. And it was a beauty. It was only weighed 900 grams. It's not great big, but it's a beautiful regmolith stone, very pretty. And so back to statistics once again. 10 days of towing a coil, sweeping covered 50% of the area. the easy area, 300 pounds of scrap metal, nuts, bolts, 50-gallon drums, pliers, wrenches, tools, pieces of combines, pieces of metal built off of buildings. Man, oh man, somebody actually took the 300 pounds of iron in and cashed it in at one of the metal places in town. But there was one find out of 500 to 1,000 false alarms. It was amazing. And we covered 250 kilometers towing that coil around that field. So actually it was 4 fields that we went through. So it was a blast. And then a couple of years later, we decided to go back to Buzzard Coulee. Now, 2019 was the 10th anniversary, and somebody started bugging me about it. And so we just had to go, and we told our friends in Winnipeg, Stan Runge and Ralph Kronig, and also Rick Huziak, and they took no time at all to go. So we decided we'd meet out at the field, and there we are beside the old bowler trailer. And we went out once again with the Buzzard Coulees now. Since they're covered by grass, there's no way on earth you're going to be able to spot them visually. When we first went out, everything was visual. You just looked at the ground, you saw a black stone, it was a meteorite, or maybe it was a black rock, but you saw it. You didn't need a metal detector to find it. Now they're hidden, and you have to have a metal detector, and it has to be the right kind of metal detector, or else it won't see them at all. So anyway, there we are, having a break in the afternoon after spending way too much time swinging metal detectors. We thought that the woods would be a good place because they're such an awful place to hunt, walking around and looking for stones and leaves. But we recovered nothing but injuries and buckshot from wandering through the woods. You'd be walking along, you'd step on something, it'd come up and whack you, and you'd fall over backwards into the valley that was, because this was, of course, river gullies. And so there wasn't a level piece of land anywhere. Well, there was my son, and he was the first find of the day. And there's the stone on the ground. And he found an 86-gram stone. Just lucky as can be. It was great. And then the next lucky person was my wife. She was hunting and found one in the grass. And sure enough, there it was. It was a 33.6 gram stone. So she was the second lucky person. And then finally, on the last day that we were there, Ralph Kronig found an 88-gram stone. It was a big, beautiful stone. Just a blast hunting for it. So anyway, the bowler trailer I've got has seen a lot of meteorites. It's seen probably about 2,000 or 3,000 meteorites in its time now. And so you'll always have to have a celebratory supper after you found some great stones. So there we are, all sitting in this little trailer having a glass of wine and a nice dinner. And so here's the big winners once again, smiling. And this is where the stones were found. It was, and the trailer was just off to the left of the frame in this image, and that they were all really close by. We didn't need to walk more than about 2 city blocks, but we walked all over hell and still didn't find too many things. So there we are, and our search areas for our May trip. So if you decide to go out to Buzzard Coulee, well, be warned, this is where we searched, and we found our 3 stones. This is the summary of the stones from now to the present date, from 2010, pardon me, to the present. The yellow circles are 2010. The purple is 2013, that's Rick Huziak, and the red ones are 2019. It was great. Well, 6 people, 3 days, 8 hours a day. That's 144 man hours, and we found 3 meteorites. So that means it takes about 48 man hours to find just 1 meteorite out there now. In 2010, that number was closer to 1 meteorite every 24 hours. And we thought that we'd find a lot of things hidden in the woods, but we didn't find anything. And I might come to the conclusion we probably just didn't invest enough time there. You know, if it takes 48 hours to find a meteorite, well, we didn't spend 48 hours hunting the woods. The woods were too much like hand-to-hand combat. They were a lot of trouble. So it just wasn't worth it. I'd like to thank my many co-conspirators and friends, and this is just a partial list. There's another 50 or so that joined me on many of the trips that we went out for buzzard. And I also especially thank the landowner. He was great. And my two lovely people in my family that joined me. And you can tell from her that she doesn't like meteorite hunting at all, can you? So they were happy. So anyway, questions. I do have a couple more slides if anybody has the patience for a couple more slides. So I'll let Kim Hay decide whether or not you want to do a couple more slides or not.
Sure, go ahead, Murray.
All right. So, okay, here's the next slide. I thought this is a late on addition to this talk. I did this an hour before this talk started. And I thought, well, some of you guys out there might wonder, what kind of equipment do you need to do this stuff? And if you ever decide to come down to Alberta, you can make arrangements with me and we can see if we can go out to Whitecourt or possibly Buzzard Coulee. Buzzard Coulee is a tougher one. Whitecourt, I can guarantee you'll find something. But the equipment, well, you're going to need a metal detector, and not just any metal detector. It's really critical to get out there, read up on what they're good for. And it turns out that of the 4 detectors that I've got there, one of them is a piece of crap and the other 2 are fabulous. Or the 3 are fabulous. The Garrett 2500 on the extreme right, that's the best metal detector for hunting for iron meteorites I've ever had. It is just superb. It somehow cancels out ferrous rocks and granititious rocks. It is just wonderful. But because of that, it can't see Buzzard Coulee meteorites, not at all. Even though they've got flecks of iron in them, it cannot see them at all. It actually hides them. So it's smart software for getting rid of the crap. It does too good a job, but that's fine. I'll carry it any day. The bad thing about the Garrett 2500 is it weighs about 5 pounds. And after about 2 hours of swinging it, unless you've got an arm like Joe Atlas, it gets heavy. And it gets heavy for 8 hours later. Your arm is in abject pain, but it will find the stones better than anything else out there. The next one is the Garrett Gold. And the Garrett Gold, it will detect iron meteorites, but it will also detect Buzzard Coulee meteorites. And something about it operating at a higher frequency, it runs at, I think it's 17 or 18 kilohertz. The Garrett runs at 7 kilohertz. And then we come to the Fischer Gold Bug. The Fischer Gold Bug is a detector that was designed in the 90s. It's a dinosaur. It is ancient. It is also nothing like any other meteor or metal detector out there. It is still sold to this day, and it is superb at finding chondrites. It works really well. The Radio Shack, well, this is a $150 detector, and you get what you pay for. It doesn't have very good depth limits. It's poorly made, and if you're not careful, you'll break it. I would not recommend this at all. If you're going to buy a metal detector, do your research and buy something good. One of the things that's a problem with a lot of cheaper metal detectors, even the Garrett cheap detectors like the Garrett 250 or 400, is that they do not let you have a pinpointer function or easy method of detecting things. On the Garrett 250 and 400, you have to push a pinpoint function so that you can hear the meteorites better. If you don't do that, well, it's got discrimination circuitry that is trying to hide iron or foil or things like that. So it ends up being a bit of a pain. It's not as sensitive as using the pinpoint. And I had one of those detectors. I almost lost the tip of my thumb holding the button down for a day. And I immediately went out and bought the Garrett 2500 and never looked back. Another look at things here. Oh yeah, one last thing. The Garrett 2500 is worth about $1,100 today. The Garrett Gold is about $750 to $800 depending on where you're buying it. The Fischer Gold Bug 2 is $850 for this crazy old detector. The Radio Shack is $150. Next slide. Well, what should be in your day pack? If you find a meteorite, you want a GPS to log its location so that you can pass that information on to science. Ziploc baggies and a felt pen, marker pen, so that you can write down the waypoint number from your GPS on that bag so you know what meteorites you found where. This is counting on you finding more than one meteorite. Gloves. If you're wandering through woods, the branches and stuff are going to wrap your knuckles and things are going to smack you in the hand and the face and stuff. The gloves just protect your hands, make your life a lot better. Also, you're going to be, if you're in hunting out at Whitecourt, you're going to be carrying a shovel the whole time with you. And so that is going to get really, it's really tiring to hold that thing in your hand all day long. But if you've got a glove on, it helps. And then the usual things, bug spray, sunburn, snacks, water, first aid. And if you are the kind of person that really wants to know how big the stone is that you found, you can have a little weigh scale like the one pictured in center. And the meteorite stick, that one is across the middle of the image. And this one, it's just a 3/4 inch dowel that you pick up in a hardware store with one of the Lee Valley magnets screwed to the tip of it. They work superbly. So anyway, that is it. And I will pass this back to you guys.
That is excellent, Murray. Thank you so much. Now we all want to go out west and look for meteorites. However, do you think, have you ever been down to Southwest Ontario where they've actually done some meteorite hunting?
No, I've not had the opportunity. I'd love to do that. That would be really great. I know some friends of mine from the meteorite community were down in Richardson, Ontario when the Guelph area when that meteorite came in about 10 years, 15 years ago. And oops, I will start my video. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, my friends had gone down there and they had actually found stones, and since they're Canadian stone and an American finder, I had to tell them, well, you can't bring it out of the country. But if you talk to the University of Alberta, there's a meteorite scientist there who might like to collect that stone so that they've got a sample of a Canadian stone in their collection. And so that's exactly what happened. And that stone ended up being retained by the Canadian institution. So that's good.
That's good.
Also, I didn't have $4,000 to buy the stone from it. It was 7 grams. 7 grams at 1,000. For $4,000, pardon me. Yikes.
Yes.
Next.
Yes. Is there anybody else who has a question? Just put your little hand up that and we can see if you've got a question.
Nope, I've talked all their ears off.
Oh, excellent talk. Oh, Kevin has a question. I can see it.
Thank you very much, Murray. That was an excellent talk. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And of course, you answered the first question I had is what kind of metal detectors do you have and where do you get them? The next question I have is that there are many of us here in the Kingston Center who are, in fact, avid meteorite collectors. And what is your best advice for storing them over the long time periods?
Meteorites all have iron in them, almost all of them, except for the lunars and Martians. And because of that, the iron will rust. Chondrites are quite porous. They will let moisture into them, and the iron that's in them eventually. The iron meteorites, some iron meteorites are really good. The Gibian irons, things like that. They'll last for a very long time. Meteorites will rust easily. You can put them in a package with silica gel and use silica gel to keep the moisture away from them. Or you can put them in a dry box of some sort or another, which has got a package of silica gel in it. You can make up a display cabinet and have it sealed so that you can have a kind of moisture absorbent in it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
I just so it's exciting that they're all most meteorites are magnetic, have iron in them. But what about? I'm just wondering what proportion of other rocks you would be picking up.
There are a lot of rocks. Some of the granititious rocks have ferrous components in them. They have iron oxides or iron minerals in them, and some of them will set off a metal detector quite well. But because they're not conductive, sometimes the metal detector can use that as a method of discriminating from conductive iron to just a ferrous object. And as I said, the one detector I've got specifically excludes things that are not bulk conductive, and little tiny flecks of iron that are in chondritic meteorites, they look like distributed iron, but they're not conductive over the bulk of the stone. So, you have to be careful, be able to set your detector so that it will ignore in the right places. Like if I'm going to whitecourt, I want to ignore anything that's ferrous but not conductive, and I can do that. But at Buzzard Coulee, of course, now you're at the mercy of every darn rock out there, and if it's one of the granititious rocks, it will set the detector off. What's worse though is it's amazing. You're out in a farmer's field, and there's junk out there all over the place in the farmer's field. There's very few places that are don't have stuff that's already been abandoned in them, and so it's just the way it is.
So you said you get your, I think you mentioned Lee Valley is where you get these magnets?
Yes, the Lee Valley's got these really cool magnets, and they've got they're in a cup, a metal cup, and they've got a hole in the middle of the neodymium magnet that you can put a screw. They've got the bright idea, somebody got the bright idea that you could screw these things onto a wall and you could hang saws from them, wrenches, things like that. But some of these things, the biggest ones they've got, I think, are 1 5/8 inches in diameter, and they claim they'll pick up 65 pounds. I don't know why I'd want to be ripping my pair of pliers off the wall with that kind of magnets on the other side, but these are wonderful little magnets. And when you're digging out the whitecourt iron meteorites, the shrapnel, what happens? Yes, there they are. There's rare earth magnets, but if you keep going down, somewhere down below, steel washers, there are some super magnets. Yes, there it is, cup magnet sets. And there it is, that is the one. And those are unreal. Those are superb. They're perfect for making up a magnet stick for looking for meteorites. But anyway, going back to the whitecourt irons, you dig this plot of dirt out of the ground. You found a meteorite, but you don't know exactly where it is. And so you take a shovel full of dirt out of the ground and you dump it on the ground. And now you've got this big gob of dirt. And you swing the detector over it, but you don't know exactly where in that dirt the meteorite is. But if you've got a magnet on a stick, you just scrub it through the dirt and all of a sudden it goes click, and there's the meteorite. Yeah, so it's just great.
Oh, that's neat. I think that'd be a fun activity with the family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the grandson would be very interested in that, I think.
Yeah, it's cool. And the chondrites are easily picked up by these magnets as well. Whenever we were out at Buzzard Coulee, which is a H chondrite, which means it's got a high metal content, you'd stick the stick down on the ground and you could hear the Buzzard Coulee meteorite snap to the magnet, and it was quite a nice sound. But even the low metal chondrites like Bruderheim, they click to that magnet quite nicely as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions for Murray? Yeah,
I do.
Peter?
I do. I have a bounty hunter.
Oh, yeah.
For metal detector that I use for detecting survey stakes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it worked quite well, but I found an awful lot of other junk. How do you narrow down what you're looking for when it comes to a meteorite?
One of the things that is useful to do if you don't own a meteorite, if you're thinking of going out and hunting for chondritic meteorites like Buzzard Coulis or something like that, what you really need to do is buy one so you've got one in your hand, and then you can see how the metal detector, you can adjust the ground balance, you can adjust the different controls on it, and you can see what enhances the sound that you pick up when you pass over the meteorite and what doesn't. Unfortunately, if you're looking for iron meteorites, if you have any discrimination at all, what's going to happen is it's going to ignore the iron meteorites, and you don't want to do that. So you're going to, I've got places out at Whitecourt where there's some garbage dumps where the settlers that were there 50 years ago or 80 years ago just threw their garbage out on the ground. So you'll be swinging along, you'll dig out a tin can, you'll dig out an old fork. You might dig out a gold ring. I dug out a gold ring last year, and but you know, you have to dig everything if you're out in that kind of a situation. So, but the chondrites, yes, you can learn to tune your detector, but you need to own one of the meteorites first. You know, something typical in that, and you can find cheap meteorites like the Northwest Africa 869 or things like that. I think you can pick them up for $1 a gram or a couple dollars a gram, depending on the suppliers. And you can take one of those. What I do is whenever I go hunting, I take a meteorite in a Ziploc baggie, I throw it on the ground, and then I swing my detector over it, and I get used to listening for that tone. And then I can adjust my detector as well. The other thing that I do, if you're going out for a visual hunt, like if there's a recent fall, like something that happened, you know, a couple months ago or whatever, what you do is you take a meteorite and put it on the ground just to see what a meteorite on the ground looks like in context with the ground, because you have to teach your eye, because what you're doing is you're scanning the ground, and you scan, you scan, you scan. But if you don't have a good idea in mind what it is that you're scanning for, you'll start daydreaming and you'll lose it. You'll walk right over top of them. But if you've taken a good look at a meteorite lying on the ground, you get an idea of what it's going to look like in context with the ground surface that you're working with. And I would do that whenever I got a bunch of people out at Buzzard Coulis. I'd throw a meteorite on the ground and I'd say, okay, look at that. That's what you're looking for. And that way, everybody could have a chance to, you know, prep their brains, get their eye thinking about what it is that you want to find.
Great. Kevin, I'm going to bring my metal detector over and train it on your meteorite.
We have meteorites up the wazoo that you can train it on.
Good, good.
Are there any other questions?
When are you going again?
Way to go, Stan.
Buzzard Coulis, if I could get out there again this year, I'd probably go around the end of September. And I will be going out to Whitecourt to hunt for more irons in October. What I usually do is over the summer, the growth picks up and then it becomes really hard. Like right now, I wouldn't go out there because there's just so much grass and weeds and stuff. So you wait until the first frosts have killed it off, and then the stuff falls to the ground, the leaves fall to the ground. And then you can see much more clearly in the woods, i.e. for the bears that are out there. And B, you can see the ground and you're not fighting with, you know, plants quite as badly. So I'll be out there in October.
Okay. The other question is, you had that unit that you're towing behind the ATV vehicle. We have permission here in Manitoba for a farmer's field where there was a known find. And
Oh, yeah.
It's a field that has been farmed, but not extensively.
Oh, yeah.
So, we went out there and we tried to do it with, 5 people in the line, but it took forever and we didn't get anything done. So, do you have plans for how someone could build one of those pulse detector units, or?
Yeah, I could probably, if you want to take it offline and email me, I can tell you what we did, and maybe find a time when I could follow you guys out. What kind of meteorite is it? Is it an iron?
I believe it was. It's the Riverton fall.
Okay, I'll look
There's
that one up.
There's a few pieces that were found here. A few pieces were found here in Manitoba, and it's in quite an open area. And I think it is an iron. Wait, we're looking at
Cool.
different sites. But we could take it offline.
All right. Yes, you've got my email address, so you can give me a holler anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, I just want to say, wow, I can't believe I see some of these faces here from people I haven't seen in years. Franklin Lodi, Doug Engel, Stephen Benningfield is here. My goodness, Gary Diamond, you showed up. How was Lego weekend? Okay. It's just amazing. I'm so glad you all came out to the meeting to hear the talk. Okay, if there's no other questions, we're going to gear up to our next speaker, which is Hank Bartlett, who is going to talk about Hank's sunspot.
Hello there.
Hey, Stan. Hello, Hank.
I'm there. Okay.
You are
Wasn't
here.
sure if the microphone was working. It kind of switched on me a couple of minutes ago, but it's there. Okay, share screen. Yeah. And are you seeing my Hank Sunspot page there? Slideshow.
Affirmative.
Yes.
Full screen now?
Full screen single slide,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that was a wonderful meteorite talk. Like meteorites, got a few myself. This will not be anywhere near as technical because you all know I don't do tech. The main idea behind this Hank sunspot is just to let people know how the curve is going as far as ramping up towards the solar maximum, which is predicted both to be in 24 or 25, depending on who you listen to. Things have been picking up, getting better. It hasn't gone any wild yet, but there has been some beautiful sunspots. And I just want to kind of encourage people through visual to see what the sun looks like, especially in hydrogen alpha. It's a little more expensive way of imaging, but it's so beautiful and moving and always changing. And sunspots change from day to day, but H alpha changes by the minute at times. And so here we go. How busy has it been? Well, June through August, there was one X solar flare, which is awesome because that's an early X solar flare. 4 M class, 77 C class flares. And most of these were produced by the 36 active regions, 12. Oops, I got to move the little screen with the people's faces in them there. AR 12, 827 through 862. Solar flares do not always come from active sunspots. They come from other regions at times with no named sunspot actually being the cause. And since September 1st, there has been 8 C-class solar flares produced by AR 12, 860, 64, 66, and 68. Now, up until today, there had only been 3, and they were all produced by 860, but there was 5 C-class in the last, oops, excuse me, folks. There was 5 C-class flares in the last 2 days, I should say. So it's getting a little more active, and we do have some beautiful sunspots right now. What did I do on the summer vacation? Well, I floated and had some sippies. I watched ball, and that's why I haven't been to the Wednesday night sessions. It's been the kids' ball time, the grandkids, so I've been going there instead. And well, I still got to move. I have, oh, hold on, guys. Kevin, how do I get rid of that share chat bar?
Click on it and drag it sideways.
Just drag it. Okay. I want to click on something that'll shut anything off. Okay. I'll put it down here in the corner. Maybe that'll help. It was right up in the top. Now I got to go back to where I started. Right here. Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm not techie. This is just an example of a really nice sunspot that came on, which is 12/8/33 on the 15th of June, way back on the 15th of June. But you can see a great deal of plage around it in the upper eastern side of it, in the upper left, and one sunspot going off on the right-hand side. I did not record the number on that because it wasn't still a sunspot that was active. And it's really cool, especially to see the plage when it's near the edge, and sometimes with high power you can actually see it just like it's valleys. Kim took an excellent picture not too long ago of that, and it was quite beautiful. You can see the depth that it goes to into the surface of the sun. Then on the 28th of June, a really nice one came along. It was even better and bigger, a pair of them. There was 12/8/37 up in the upper left, but down below 8/35 and 8/36, beautiful pair of sunspots with some nice magnetic field. You can see in the picture on the left, the inset, that nice magnetic fields around the sunspot. And when you get that on a large spot, you can actually start to pick up that detail a lot easier. This is in an 80mm scope, and it turns out pretty good, but you need really still seeing and a really good day. We've had a lot of haze over this past summer. We've had a lot of smoke, and that was smoke time kind of back then. But this was one particular day where seeing was good and clarity was good. It was turned out quite well. Another now into the H alpha. You can see this picture is quite grainy. That's because it was a rather hazy day, and the haze is creates a fair bit of granulation in that in itself. But you can see this beautiful, beautiful looping. You know, some of them they're mostly called arches, but this, the way it is, it looks almost like a loop that's just jumping up and coming back down kind of towards us. This is the kind of thing that over the period of a day, sometimes you can sit there and watch this thing actually move, or take an image every half hour or hour. And it's fantastic to see. And they change constantly every day. Now on the 14th of July, there's another one down just about the same, actually, down in the lower southeast. And on the west side, we have quite an array of hedgerow and other spots along, or flares, and a lot of activity in the middle, a lot of active region, but there wasn't much going on for sunspot. As you can see, there was one sunspot, AR 12/8/42, that day. And a lot of these just do not come to fruition and become an actual spot, but they do, like right here. This is 12/8/42 right there where the arrow is pointing now. But they do still sometimes, as I said before, cause flares and cause eruptions and get very bright. They just don't have that darkened core that sunspots have. Now here's an example side by side of active region and sunspots to compare them. And you can look from side to side and see there's sunspot, sunspot here, in here. You don't even see the spot. Another one in the upper right here, this is 8/42, the one we had in the previous image. And it's now rolling off the edge. You can see there, if you look closely, the amount of plage that's around that. I should have got out the 9 1/4 inch and taken some pictures of the plage on that. and maybe possibly got some deep examples of the Wilson effect, which is what shows the valleys and crevices that are caused by the action of the sun. And then down here, 845 and 847, 849. This was not named at that time, and I do not recall actually if it actually did become a spot, but you can see it in the white light. There is nothing at all in the center south, but there's a lot of activity there with filaments and active region that you just don't see in the white light at all. Now, this was a beautiful week. This is from the 14th of August to the 21st, so 7 days. This beautiful prominence here just popped up, and over the next day and two and week, it just kept staying in there. Now, like I say, sometimes things come and go in a day's time, or even less, even moments. I've seen them come and disappear within an hour or two. But this one in the afternoon from 11 o'clock to 14, 3 hour time, you can see how much it changed on that day and became more of a, well, I kind of picture that to be like a bush or something growing up. You know, I often see faces in these things and that. And on the 15th, the next day, it's just like a beautiful tree. And these images are nowhere near what you actually see in the H alpha, the beautiful thin filaments. And in H alpha, of course, to let you know, for those that haven't looked, is in pink, reddish pink. And that's the color that hydrogen comes in observing through a solar max scope or a hydrogen alpha scope. And then a few days later, we had cloud for 3 days, for the 16th, 17th, 18th. And then it started to roll over the edge and become a surface feature, and became a filament, and a rather large filament. I've never seen a filament so big. It was a little more dense than that. And of course, in the images that you see on Gong H alpha, it's in black and white and is much more prominent. But it was absolutely stunning to see such a large area of the sun darkened down. You know, when you consider that the size of the Earth is, you know, down here where the sunspot is, down in the lower, below the equator there on the lower southeast, and this, the size of it is immense. By the 21st, a couple of days later, another cloudy day in between, it had thinned out dramatically and got quite a bit smaller, but still was a striking feature, especially, like I say, in H alpha. You can see that these 2 days, the 19th and the 21st, were rather hazy, the 21st being worse, a lot more haze in the sky because it's very, very tiny granular effect to it. You lose some of the feature, surface feature when that happens, when it gets very moist and very humid in the sky. On the 26th of August now, skimming through the summer, it's going by quickly. Just a little example of some beautiful surface features that you could see again. This is the kind of thing I love to watch and chase and image. The sun is nice with the spots, but this H alpha is amazing to see the changing in it. And you can see in the white light image more plage and stronger plage, especially in the upper upper left, which is AR 12861. It became. I questioned it there because it had not been assigned yet, but that's what it was. And we had a nice spot and a lot of nice plage that through the scope, when you're looking, you can see it really well, like tracks in the snow or something like that. On the 28th, so we're moving across a little bit, and you can see the amount of change in those. Let's see, hold it. In those 2 days, you can see the surface feature change, and a lot of these small filaments in the bottom are completely gone in that 2 days. like I say, constant changing. And notice the difference here between white light with the sunspot 860, which produced a lot of C-class eruptions, and how it looks in the H alpha. The H alpha is nice, but here in this case, the sunspots themselves look much more dramatic and much more beautiful. And anybody can do that. Just put some Botter film or a glass filter on your scope. It doesn't matter the size of the scope, from small to large. I've used anywhere from a 40 millimeter up to a 10-inch, which is the Rick's now Hank scope. And it was much better in the Hank scope. The detail was much finer and the plage was much better. But anybody that's interested, get out there and do some solar imaging, some solar observing. And as we come up to the maximum in 2024 or 25, it is going to be fantastic. And then you get these wild prominences like in the northeast here that just jump up, dance, and they are actually some of the best imagers. They take video and they time lapse it, and man, you can see those things actually moving and pouring from one end to the other or diving back down into the surface. It's fantastic. One of the few changing things in our lifetime in the solar system as compared to, nebulas and that. They do change, but it takes over a great amount of time. And there's the comparison shot again of the sunspots compared to the H alpha. So you can see that there's benefit in doing both. And this is my favorite picture of the month. And this is because I was fortunate enough to be picked for Solar Activity Picture of the Day on the 16th of August. And I'm very proud of that image.
And you kept it secret and you didn't tell us.
It's on the Facebook, and Kim congratulated me, but that's I think the only person that ever saw it. So anyway, that's my report for this summer, and all done.
That is fantastic work, Hank.
Yep,
Thank you
yep.
so much.
So
Congratulations.
Kim will have to tell you
should
when
stop doing everything else and just take pictures all day long and all night long.
Kim will have to start telling you things and sharing things with you. But she knew it.
We would need 72 hours a day to do that.
Yeah. Did you get out today?
No, I did not. We were busy today and I did not get out. So
Yeah,
I missed all the excitement there was today.
I was out for about half an hour today, so I haven't processed anything, but there were clouds. They came in and ruined a couple of pictures, but that's okay.
As it always does. And
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
That's excellent. Great pictures. Okay, next we are going to have Rick Wagner is going to tell us what's up in the sky for September. Rick.
Okay. So sky for this coming month. First, we'll start on the ground, RASC and local events. This weekend, of course, is Fallen Stars, and the forecast is looking pretty good. So I expect to do some observing. Queens hasn't started up their seminars and stuff yet this year. However, the cave lecture is on the 29th of September. Dave Sobel, who's a really good author, talking about women's work at the dawn of astrophysics. So I think this relates to the book, The Glass Universe, which I thought was just excellent. Queen's University Observatory has another new Fast Radio Burst podcast out about how to inflate a universe. And I can't remember if Eyes on the Dragonfly is a new one or if that was up last month. The British Astronomical Association is continuing with their more or less weekly seminars and stuff. 4th of September, there's an error there somewhere. Their autumn seminar, 15th of September, the Daylight Fireball of March 20th. I've never heard of that. 18th of September, their radio astronomy group is going to be unpacking the mysteries of GNU radio. And then on the 1st of October, also the radio astronomy group, the changing environmental conditions in near Earth space. So that'd be space weather. AAVSO webinars this Saturday, while some of us are off at Fallen Stars, using the AAVSO's exoplanet database. 2 weeks later, something for people new to spectroscopy, some tips on getting started. I could sure use a few of those. The following week, the second, eclipsing binaries and the O-C diagrams. That's Gary Billings from Alberta doing that one. And then another talk on the 9th. They haven't got a speaker yet for that one. The Lennox and Addington Deep Sky Viewing Area is open for use, subject to masks and physical distancing. They're having their last organized event this weekend, a laser-guided stargazing tour. And the North Frontenac Deep Sky Preserve also open, also masking and distancing. And their next event is Thanksgiving weekend. They're having a night with the giant ice, gas and ice planets. So they'll all be up and visible through the evening. Be good observing. So we're coming into the fall now. So you can see on the 22nd of September, the status of twilight, daylight, and so forth. The 24-hour day is split almost exactly in half daytime, half nighttime, provided you accept twilight as part of nighttime. I'm a little flexible on that, but anyway, up to 8 3/4 hours of astronomical darkness. So there's lots more observing time than there has been recently. Up in the sky, early in the month, you can see the zodiacal light in the eastern sky during morning twilight. Around midnight, if you're under really dark skies, you can try to see the Gegenschein. It's basically centered about where Neptune is now. It's about 10 degrees across, extremely faint glow in the sky, best seen at midnight when it's at its highest. Tomorrow night, the crescent moon will be 4 degrees to the upper right of Venus and forming a nearly equilateral triangle with Venus and Spica. So it'll be very photogenic. 13th is first quarter moon. On the 14th is Neptune's opposition. So one of the things we're going to try at Fallen Stars is look for its brightest moon, Triton, at magnitude 13.5. It's an interesting moon because it's the only major moon in the solar system that actually orbits retrograde. And because it takes about 6 days to go around, if you watch it every night, you'd actually be able to see it moving in retrograde. Also on the 14th, Mercury is at greatest elongation east. However, because this is in the evening sky, the ecliptic is very low, and so it's not a very good apparition for Mercury. The 20th is the full moon. 22nd, we start autumn in the northern hemisphere. And on the 29th, last quarter moon. Then getting into early October, up to our next meeting, 5th of October, chance to see a very thin crescent moon. It's just a few minutes shy of 24 hours before new. So for instance, if you're doing the challenge objects of the Isabel Williamson lunar certificate, this is a good chance to check that one off. Again, the zodiacal light, while the moon is not bothering us, and an even better opportunity to see the Gegenschein near midnight. New moon on the 6th, on the 9th, rather attractive crescent moon near Venus, and on the 13th is the first quarter moon. So Kathy Hall alerted me to a page on Sky and Telescope's website about comets. There's one, now these are mostly probably imaging comets, but within range of a decent sized scope, 10 or 12 inch easily. So Comet Pan-STARRS in the evening, just coming south out of the keystone of Hercules at magnitude 12.4 or so. Periodic comet Finley at magnitude 14 is, it's kind of hard to tell because there's two, but there's the one going across the center of the field is Finley at around magnitude 14. It has been known to give outbursts. And the other comet there is Hartley. I think it's around 16th magnitude. So probably won't be looking for that one anyway. Periodic comet Faye at around 11 to 12th magnitude is crossing from Taurus into northern Orion. So it'll be at magnitude 11.6. It should be a nice thing to look for. Periodic comet 29P Schwarzmann-Wachmann at magnitude 15.5. This is a comet that's really well known for outbursts, frequently brings it up into the range of 8-inch telescopes. And you can see it's actually not the one in the center of the field. I wanted to try and get the whole constellation of Auriga in there so you could get an idea of where we're looking. And down to the bottom right of Auriga is Schwarzmann-Wachmann. And there's actually, I can't remember who they are now, but there is a group that's doing research on SW for looking at the outbursts, how they develop, how they progress. And finally, Comet 2019 L3 Atlas at about 13th magnitude up north of Gemini. You can see it's moving a lot more slowly. And magnitude 13, so big scopes or for the imagers. Oh, and Churyumov-Gerasimenko at 11th magnitude, heading into the Hyades. So that'll be quite attractive. This is probably at magnitude 10.8. This is probably a good one for some wide field imaging. Get the Hyades and the Pleiades in there, and a little green comet, hopefully. In the asteroid department, number 2 Pallas is at opposition on the 10th of September at magnitude 8.5. And on the 1st of October, number 40 Harmonia is at opposition at magnitude 9.4. So those are Pallas I shot last month, and Harmonia is one that I will, at least one of the ones I will try to shoot this month in my goal to collect the first 110 asteroids. Asteroid occultations, 1039 Sonneberga is a 10.1 magnitude asteroid that's going to go in front of a 16.9 magnitude star. So the combination of the two is going to drop 6.8 magnitudes for a period of up to 1.76 seconds. Looks like it should be well above the horizon. And you can see that Kingston itself is just basically on the 1 sigma boundary. But any of us keeners who live up north of the city are right in the predicted path. 762 Pulkova number 1. I'm not sure why Pulkova number 1, but anyway, on the 7th of October, it's a 13.6 magnitude asteroid going in front of 11.8 magnitude star for up to 7.6 seconds. This path also puts Kingston just outside the southern edge. And it's interesting that these tracks, both of them, you can see the blue lines are the predicted path. The red lines are the 1 sigma deviations, and they're very close. They used to be a lot wider than that. And finally, on the 11th of October, 365 Cordoba is, let's see, 14.8 magnitude asteroid going in front of a 12.5 magnitude star. So 2.5 magnitude drop for up to 4.4 seconds. And you can see that Kingston, basically almost all of our local observers are all within the path. So that's a promising one for later in the month, or early next month rather. And that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. That gives us a lot to do over the next few months. Hopefully
Hey,
our
Rick.
skies will stay clear.
Be sure to post on the chat list the days in advance of that so that we can do that, because they all three of those happen for me.
Yep. I have them in my calendar.
Are there any other questions for Rick? No? Okay, our next speaker is Kevin Kell, and he's going to be talking about the center meteorites. Take it away, Kevin.
Okay, so first, this is going to be complicated. Am I on? Am I on? Hi, everybody. Just to let you know a couple of things. First of all, if you've never seen the Meteorite Men, it's a TV show that was on, and we happen to have the clip about White Court. And I don't know if Murray's in this particular segment or not. Keep your eyes peeled. Do you see him? Oh. So we have those available. If anybody's really interested, contact me offline and we'll see about getting them for you. So the center has a meteorite collection, and I'm just going to switch cameras here and turn off my background Jupiter because it is not showing the meteors. And we've got 6 meteorites, and we've used them for outreach and passing out in schools and all that kind of stuff. And when they come back home, they go back inside sealed bags, which are probably going to have some desiccant added to them. Thank you, Murray. And I'm not sure about a permanent display case because it's always the hands-on outreach that really get people interested. So this is for center members information. These can be signed out. If you have just bought a $1,000 metal detector and you want to test it, well, hey, come and sign out the meteorites and try it out. Number 1 was the NWA, Northwest Africa 869. Geez, that sounds familiar. Yeah, Murray mentioned it. That's fine. It's 12.4 grams and about $1 a gram is what we paid for it. And I don't know if I can show that any better. Do I take it out and handle it? What do you think, guys? Yay, no. Okay, I'm being yelled at no here in the audience, so we'll just skip past that one. This is more to make you aware that they exist. Number 2 that we have is a Gibian Namibia iron meteorite. I'm reading this upside down just in case you're wondering. And this was a nice 33-gram piece. And again, it was selling for about $1 a gram. Very heavy, and I'm sure that would set off Peter's metal detector. Meteorite number 3. This one is a little more dodgy. I don't know if it's real or not. It says it is a Martian meteorite. Got too much light on here. How about, no, there we go. Northwest Africa, 998, Martian meteorite, 10 milligrams. Very tiny. We paid $25 for it, so we'll believe that it's real. Here's a good one. Campo del Cielo, Chaco, Argentina. Everybody's got a piece of this. Yes. I don't know if I can get the light. Too much, too little. It's hard to say. Where, you might ask, do we buy these things? Here at Queen's University in Kingston, there is an annual fundraising mineral sale and show at the Geology Museum. And the company that we bought this one was Grenville Minerals out of Kingston. And they're there every year selling meteorites. They usually only have 1 or 2 types. I do seem to recall a member by the name of Hank Bartlett bought a 20,000 kilo chunk there. I don't think he's got any money left to buy any more telescopes, but he's got the single biggest meteorite I've ever seen. Meteorite number 5. This one says Rick Huziak number 9, White Court, Alberta. Oh, and we'll turn it over. And this is a 67 gram. Nope, 6.7. Okay, 6.7 gram meteorite. And again, it's kind of hard to see on these webcams, but it is a white quartz meteorite that Rick went out and found. And he was also nice enough to provide fancy dancy authentication certificates just so that we can be sure and not lose it and not lose track of it and know what it was. And then the last one that the center has, meteorite number 6, is a, I don't know if I can read this, Sakote Alin, which is again a very common meteorite from Russia. And this is, I don't have it written down on that piece of paper. Shuffling through paper. That is a 1.2 gram iron meteorite. So not too bad. It's if they get more use and people sign them up more, we may end up collecting more for the center, but basically they're just sitting there in a static fashion. And so Kim and I also collect meteorites, and I just wanted to show one that was of relevance here. And this was Buzzard Coulee number 287. And this was a 15 gram Buzzard Coulee meteorite. And oh my God, $20 a gram. Somebody's making a lot of money on these things. Yeah, it really doesn't show up too well. So apparently there is good money to be made by spending your entire day out with a metal detector going back and forth across fields, but not so much out here in Ontario. The terrain is just totally not conducive at all for hunting meteorite. Oh, I should switch my camera back. Hunting meteorites. Flat prairies are awesome. And yeah, that's about all I had, folks. How do I take Kim off of, oh no, there's not spotlights. Okay, that's it. That's all I've got. We've got meteorites.
Great. Thank you so much for letting us know we have meteorites. It would be nice to actually be able to display these or have them brought out to meetings, you know, when we're ever allowed to have those again. Especially if members want to actually take a look at them and see what they look like. Maybe we can even weigh them ourselves to see if they still weigh what they say they weigh and they didn't, you know, go on a diet or something. Other than that, I'm going to open up the floor since we're at the end of our regular meeting and we just have what's coming up. We have our October meeting coming up on Wednesday, the 13th of October at 7 p.m. Zoom meetings for now. It's probably looking like January of 2022 before we're back into the university if we ever get there. We're still waiting. We still have our weekly social on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. via Zoom. So next Wednesday night will be a social night. But if you're not a member of the RASC-Kingston Center and you want to be, go to the secure.rasc.ca membership and sign up. We are on YouTube, so tonight's meeting, if you want to see it again, will be up by sometime tomorrow, up on the Kingston Center's YouTube channel. We're on Twitter, and we are also on Facebook, as Hank was posting his pictures on Facebook. And Stephen Craig's pictures also go on Facebook, and he does images galaxies, and they're quite phenomenal. So now I'm going to have the meeting just turn over for a free-for-all. If there's any questions or chatting amongst